So this is Matt Weston from Vantage 365, and I'm Kimberly with Reenhanced. The reason that I wanted to get together with you today was to talk a little bit about the Vantage 365 imaging connector. I wanted to get a little bit of a sense from you about, first of all, why you created that connector for Power Automate.
Okay, so the actual reason for me creating it, first of all, was because I needed it. So it's a case of I needed to generate QR codes. For what I was doing at the time was a visitor's power app. So I wanted the ability for users to be able to pre-register people, which would send that person, that visitor, a QR code that they could just come in and they could scan, and it would automatically know who they are and so sign them in. So they didn't have to go to a tablet and type all the details in. It already knew who they were. And for me to do that, I needed to resort to some code to actually go and create the QR code. And I then started to look at other scenarios where I could use it. So I also now use this for some ticketing solutions that I've written as well. And it was a case of I need to reuse that. So the best way for me to reuse it was to create it as, first of all, a custom connector. But then as I spoke to other people about, oh, actually, we're doing a similar sort of thing, and we've had to go and try and Google or Bing how to create a QR code using some code. And well, actually, I've got the solution for that. And so that's where I then took that custom connector and submitted it for certification with Microsoft.
What sort of pain points did you experience in the process?
To be honest, very few pain points in terms of the actual certification process. That was actually really smooth. There's a portal that's set up especially for submitting the connectors. So once you go through the initial, there's almost like a bit of an interview process to start off with, just to talk about your use cases and why you're doing it and the value it could bring. And then once you go through that, it's a case of submitting it, going through the various validation points, and then going through the testing actually in a deployed environment. So the whole process from end to end has been extremely smooth. So I've been really impressed. That's
great. What is your, speaking of use cases, what's kind of your favorite or the best use case you've heard of it used for so far?
So again, the best use case is what I'm using it for at the moment, which is my main usage as it stands right now, which is I run user groups. So yeah, I use the Automate connector for producing tickets for the user groups that I run. Basically, the whole sign-up process starts off with Microsoft Forms. So so somebody who wants to attend a user group will come in, they'll put the details in, so I then get all of the information that I need about them. But what it will then do is go through an automation process that will build a ticket, first of all, as a Word document, so I can inject content into that Word document, including the QR code that I've generated using the Vantage 365 imaging connector. I can then change that Word document to a PDF, and then I can send that out as a ticket that someone can either then present on their phone, or they can print it out and they can present it as a hard copy as well when they attend. So the whole idea behind everything that's within that imaging connector is it will work with Power Apps. So I can then have a Power App on the other end, which is going to scan that code again, just like the visitors app, which I described earlier. But I can scan that QR code from the ticket, and it will automatically register them as being present. So that's the big use case that I'm using it for at the moment.
Okay. And so how do you feel like that changed your business practice overall, having that connector? What does that do for you?
To be honest, it saves us a lot of time because all of that is done automatically for us. I don't have to worry about having to do that whole process now. But it also means that I know that the QR codes and now, because I've extended it with some updates, the barcodes that are generated as well, I know that they're containing the information that's needed. So I've got peace of mind that that's going to work, and I can implement it now in so many different scenarios that anytime I need a barcode or I need a QR code, then I can just throw my connector into the mix and I'm going to get the result that I want.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it saved you some time, but it also seems like it's sort of streamlined things for you and kind of giving you more control almost.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about the control, but it's very much about the reuse as well. So reuse is absolutely key. So I don't have to keep reinventing that same wheel. I can just keep reusing that connector because all I need to do is tell it what I want it to generate, the information that needs to go in there, and it will go ahead and do it for me.
Okay, fantastic. That sounds great. I read about some of your upcoming added capabilities that are kind of coming in the pipeline for that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So most of that pipeline is now rolled out. So in the first instance, the connector was designed just to create QR codes. But as I started to look at the wider use of those 2D and 1D codes, it was a case of actually now's the time to start thinking about what else do we need. We need barcodes. Okay, so what are the barcodes that we need, and more so, what barcodes does PowerUp support? So it's a case of then looking at the other standards that are out there, and also making it possible to generate those and use those in exactly the same way.
Gotcha. Do you have any advice for somebody that's going to create like their own custom connector after having gone through that process?
Yeah, don't be afraid to do it, because the hardest part is actually thinking up the idea in the first place. Mm-hmm. If you've got the idea, then you can take it forward. And Microsoft are really encouraging us to come up with these types of connectors, because that's enriching the Power Platform. And there's only so many ideas and so many services that Microsoft themselves can touch. The rest of it is going to come from what we can do out in the community and out in industry. So if you've got an idea, whether it's for your service or whether it's a piece of functionality that you think would be useful that you don't actually see there at the moment, then it's so easy for you to just submit it and then go through that certification process.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And it sounds like it's a fairly smooth one from what you said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of other connectors that I'm working on at the moment, so I'll be going through that process again with those. So fingers crossed it'll be as smooth next time.
There you go. Fingers crossed. So what added information about the Vantage 365 imaging connector would you want users to know, just beyond what you've told me already, just anything that maybe I didn't ask you about already?
So really just the fact that it's so flexible in terms of what it can be used for. So really we've spoken about two use cases, such as visitors and for creating tickets. But quite often I've worked with companies in the past that have needed to generate QR codes as part of their manufacturing process, or as part of their production line process, or even in the legal industry where they actually need to barcode their documents as they go through. And if you want to automate aspects of that, then the imaging connector is really one of the best ways of going about that.
Mm-hmm. That sounds terrific, really. It sounds like you're finding great success with it and being able to come up with new uses for it and new ideas for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like everything else, you're limited really by your imagination and the time that you can spend to actually put those automations in place. But if you can do it, if you can just find 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there to start putting those processes together, then you can save yourself so much time overall, but it's worth that little bit of investment.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great. So I have one last question for you. Of one of your posts, I was reading through your blogs, and it was about putting a QR code into a Word document. It was just kind of giving a step-by-step, which, by the way, it was great to just see that step-by-step process. Because I'm kind of that mind. I need, show me each little step. Once I do it once or twice, then I'm good. But I need that really great breakdown. So that was good. But in that particular blog post, you use an example of Kingsman Tailors Limited on Oxford Street in London as your thing. So I have two questions for any Americans that might be watching this. Number one, are they real? And number two, would you recommend them?
They're not real, unfortunately. They were made up. It was all based on one of my favorite films recently, which is Kingsman.
Oh, okay.
So that's I'd recently watched it when I put that watched it just before I started writing that blog post. So I just carried that across into my into my blog. So unfortunately, they're not real.
Fantastic.
And if by coincidence they are real, then it was purely coincidental.
Touche. Well, listen, Matt, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing what else Vantage 365 has to come up with.
Thanks, Kimberly. It's been great talking to you.
It's great talking to you too. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye.